tell my leaders all the time, clear is kind, right? That is such an important topic, Charlene, right? Because love without boundaries isn't love.
Exactly.
It's enmeshment. And that leads straight to burnout. I tell
Yes.
my leaders all the time, clear is kind, right?
Right.
If I let poor performance slide, I'm not being loving, I'm being permissive. And
Right.
that's unfair to the rest of the team. And so I practice love by protecting my own energy too, right? You can't rescue, you have to coach. I don't overfunction, I empower. Walls that sort of let the garden of our culture actually grow safely, because again, love without boundaries isn't love. When people feel your energy, when people know that you genuinely care, they look for those boundaries. They want those boundaries because they know that it's protective as well as it is educating.
Greetings, and welcome to your coach, Charlene. I am so excited to be here today. I have a special friend of mine that I just developed last November. I met her at the Caritas Consortia. And so, Darlene, tell us a little bit about yourself. I'm so excited that you're here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Truly, it is such an honor to be here, Charlene. I often think of executive leadership in healthcare as sort of this cold clinical machine. But what I've learned is that leading with love isn't really a soft choice. It's a high level competency, really. It's the very thing that sort of stabilizes myself and my teams and projects, really sort of around the human soul.
Yes.
And so for me, I've been in healthcare for 4+ decades, and I've really been blessed through all of those experiences with helping to shape the future of care. I've served in many pivotal roles as chief nursing officer, chief operating officer, and really just have enjoyed leading strategies that sort of elevated patient outcomes and strengthened performance, but really built cultures around trust and excellence. So that's a little bit about me.
Wow, that is pretty amazing. I wanted to do so February. I love February. I love February because this is considered like the heart month, so to speak.
Yes.
And also Black History Month. So I get to like really dive in both of those two worlds. But this particular podcast is going to be about love and leadership. That just really fell on my heart because I call myself a love bug. And, I'm known for the love that I exude. And so I wanted to really just chat about that. I'm going to be doing an episode on it. And I said, let me get someone that I just like saw love oozing out of them. And that was you. And so I'm so excited that you're here. So that's kind of where we're going to go, because I think personally that if I didn't exude or if I didn't demonstrate love, that I wouldn't be me, who I am. But because I did exude love and I happen to be a leader, that was a benefit for me. And so let's just dig into it a little bit. But first of all, what's your thoughts just offhand about love and leadership?
So,
can they go together?
Yeah, I don't see love as a feeling like in the office, right?
Yes.
When I think about love and leadership, I see it as sort of an active commitment. People think being a loving leader means you're sort of a pushover. But it's actually the opposite. For me, it's demanding, right? I love my team enough to hold them to a higher standard. I think about it this way. When I hold someone accountable, I'm saying, I believe in your potential too. Just too much to let you settle for less.
Yes.
So for me, that's the greatest act of love there is. Excellence in our standards. But love is sort of the fuel that gets us there without breaking people in the process, right?
Absolutely.
I see love and accountability as two sides of the same coin.
I absolutely love that. So that really reminds me of one of my mentors. I call him my spiritual midwife. He defines love as contending with another person for their highest good in every situation until it becomes a manifestation. Yeah. So there's this, and that's exactly what I heard you say. You're kind of contending for their greatness. You see so much in them that you want to be the one that helps them to get there. So I really love your perspective on that. So let me ask you a question. So in executive leadership, how do you define love in a way that still honors accountability and excellence, just like you described here? But is there anything that you can talk to say, for instance, a executive leader that is so firm and is not even wanting to go there with the word love?
Well, that's a good question, right? So, I kind of look at it this way. I've definitely felt the skeptical silence early on,
Yes.
right? There's sort of this old school stereotype that to be strong and executive, you have to be stoic and distant and sort of transactional, especially when budgets are tight, right?
Right.
But the hardest resistance, it was actually internal. I had to fight the urge myself when things got messy, right? I had to be the first one to be vulnerable. And then eventually, leading with my heart, eventually the data did the talking for me. The
Oh, that's
teams led
wonderful.
with compassion, they stayed longer, they felt safer, and simply performed better. So, yeah, I think there is resistance that we face when we try to lead with compassion, especially in high stake environments. But I think when you stay true to the work that you're doing and you lead from a place of compassion and love, your results speak for themselves.
I
People
love that.
feel connected. Yeah.
Yeah, I really love that. What about for you? Has there been any barriers for you yourself as a human being with your love walk per se?
So barriers, right? When I think about resistance and I think, how do I get people to come into the fold, to believe in Caritas as a caring science, and to move that into our daily leadership? Caritas kind of sounds like a big philosophical word,
Yeah,
but in the hallway or the boardroom, all it is intentional presence.
right.
It's about treating people as human beings to be nurtured, not resources to be managed. So in my day-to-day, for me, that looks like starting a meeting with a Caritas moment. Maybe it's sharing a story of a patient connection before we even discuss a metric or touch a metric. It's choosing to listen before I try to solve. It's those small, consistent acts of kindness that actually move the needle on the culture. And that has met some resistance along the way. But when you practice it, when you model it, when you actually talk to your team, not just about the work, but about them, their families, what's important to them, you build relationships around what matters most. And that's us personally, as human beings, doing this real important work. And that helps them feel like they're connected to something bigger. You build a culture of kindness, of compassion, of love, and people connect to that. So
Absolutely.
I just had to get past that, right?
Yeah.
Stay the course, as they say, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually love that. I remember, because I led in that way. And matter of fact, I had a director that she said, Charlene, you need to be careful about what you say. Because like when I come in the morning, Darlene, I always tell my staff, good morning, you're loved and appreciated. It just was something that I chose to intentionally do. I called them my love rounds. So in the morning, I would do it and I would go around and all 3 units, I would do that every single day. Initially, when they first met me, they were like, okay, this lady is a little wacko. But then they start like saying, so one day I was doing my thing. I was dealing with something was on my mind. So I wasn't my authentic self. And so I walked through the units. I did not say you're loved and appreciated. And they immediately picked up on it. They said, Charlene, what's wrong? And they all came and circled around me, almost as if they felt my energy being drained. And they just gave me so much love and compassion in that moment. I almost started crying because it was just so special, because all of the love that I poured back boomeranged back at me at the moment that I needed it most. And so it was very interesting that the leader did not want me to express that type of leadership. So I really understand what you're talking about. So what would you say about when we think about boundaries? How do we as leaders practice love without becoming emotionally exhausted
Yeah.
or permissive?
That is such an important topic, Charlene, right? Because love without boundaries isn't love.
Exactly.
It's enmeshment. And that leads straight to burnout. I
Yes.
tell my leaders all the time, clear is kind, right?
Right.
If I let poor performance slide, I'm not being loving, I'm being permissive. And that's unfair to the rest of the team. And so I practice love by protecting my own energy too, right? You can't rescue, you have to coach. I don't overfunction, I empower. I think of boundaries as walls that sort of let the garden of our culture actually grow safely, because again, love without boundaries isn't love. For me, I model it, I show it, I coach along the way, I give reflective responses so that they can come to decisions. They can sort of see the forest through the trees. Sometimes we're so caught up in the chaos or whatever is clouding our vision and our senses. And sometimes it just takes a moment to pause. We forget the power of a pause. You know, Dr. Jay Watson talks about that all the time. You talked about your love rounds. I used to call them compassion rounds. And I used to round, you know, on Thursdays, every single Thursday from 1 to 2:30. And I would hit different units. And when I didn't round, it was interesting. You had people asking, you know, they could feel your energy. I would get people knocking on my door at the end of the day saying, just checking in. We didn't see you on the unit. Is everything okay?
So it's wonderful.
It is. When people feel your energy, when people know that you genuinely care, they look for those boundaries. They want those boundaries because they know that it's protective as well as it is educating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think don't rescue, coach, don't overfunction, empower. I think of those boundaries, as I said, as the walls that let our garden of our culture grow.
I absolutely love that analogy. That's a beautiful analogy. You know, I'm wondering, I remember when I had to deal with a situation that an employee was really getting to the end, going up the discipline track. And so love actually helped in this case because I built a relationship with the individual and I was contending for their highest good. It turned into this really beautiful ending because it was very apparent that the person needed to go to a different space because they needed something different. But it was done in such care and concern that they felt so seen, even in the midst of that disciplinary action, and then even follow up afterwards. So I think it is so critical because from my history that I've going up the chain, I did not see that. Like, I did not see love demonstrated. I saw the authoritative, cutthroat, like things that do not edify people whatsoever. When you have love, people know it and they support you more than anything else. Because I can remember so many night shifts going to work, and obviously at 4 a.m. in the morning, we're not getting anybody else in. And so I had this campaign. I said, you guys, no man nor woman will die alone here. I'm here. I put my scrubs on. We're going to do this together. So that just really built this culture of Charlene really cares. And so have you seen in your career any leaders that were really challenged with that degree of quote, love in action?
I think young leaders are still trying to find their footing. Yeah. And so if you don't have good mentors that show you the balance of how to lead with love instead of fear, really boxing people in, it's hard to really become a servant leader, because ultimately that's what we strive for, right? We want to teach others to lead themselves, but to do it from a place of love, to do it from a place of compassion, a place of kindness, right? When we lead from love instead of fear. You talked about doing the disciplinary route with a colleague. And I remember my very first position as a manager where I had to meet with a colleague and actually share with them that I didn't think they were in the right role. And I struggled because I was afraid I was going to hurt them and make them want to leave nursing. And what happened for both of us, but probably more so for me, is I learned coming from that place of kindness, coming from that place of love, not only helped that colleague, but it helped me as well. When you move from fear to love, you move the culture from surviving to thriving.
That's
fear
beautiful.
Makes people hide mistakes and work in silos. But love creates psychological safety, right? When we think about that. In
Yes.
healthcare, this is everything. It allows our healers to stay soft enough to connect with patients while remaining strong enough to lead. And when people feel seen and valued, they don't just comply, they actually commit. They become creative problem solvers. And ultimately, a nurse who feels cared for by their leader is a nurse who can truly care for their patient. So
Yeah.
I have learned, I've had some not good mentors, and thank goodness there were only a couple, but I've had tremendous, tremendous people in my life that have been mentors to me personally and professionally. You know, I want to share a comment that was said to me years ago by one of my leaders that said, you know, Darlene, a job is what you do. It's not who you are. He said, until I met you, I used to believe that, but now I know that this job is who you are. And I said, I can't separate myself from the work that I do. You know,
Right.
when I think about nursing, when I think about this beautiful art of human caring, Charlene, I think about all the joys it has given me and all the pain too. But isn't
Yeah.
that a beautiful thing? We learn from
Absolutely.
that, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I say, you know what? Bring your whole self to work. You're good and when you're not soft enough and things are happening, like when you have those moments like you had, your team will rally around you and you'll be able to get through the days. You know,
Yeah.
stay soft
Absolutely.
enough to connect.
Yes, absolutely. And I have another question for you. You did talk about it some, but I'd love to just get into it a little bit more because it deals with culture repair. But what shifts when leaders lead from love instead of fear?
Well, I think they're not quick to rush to judgment, right? They look at what is occurring all around them and with that individual. When you really can lead from love and see the good, you know, we're quick to rush to judgment. We want to get to that root cause. And sometimes the root cause isn't what we thought it was. You know, I used to say people don't come to work to intentionally be unkind or to hurt
Absolutely.
someone, right? Something is going on. And when we see the shift in our colleagues, because when we lead from love, we're not just leading from policy and procedure, we're
Right.
leading with our hearts. And the policies and procedures are our boundaries, right? There's
Yes.
what keeps us grounded to doing the right thing. But when we start to pick up on changes and nuances in personalities or how we're arriving that day, it makes a difference. And so sitting people down, that pause to step back and say, what's going on?
Yeah.
It makes a difference not only for the individual, but for the leader as well. And when you show that kindness, your team sees it, they feel it, and they want to bring their best selves to work.
Absolutely.
And you know, psychological safety plays into that, right?
Mm-hmm.
When people lead from love, staff will come forward. They'll come forward with concerns. They'll come forward with ideas. Curiosity blossoms, right? We don't just come
Yeah.
in to get through the day. We want to see things move in the right direction. We want to see patients thrive. We want to see opportunities for growth. That's curiosity, right?
Yeah.
You stay
Absolutely.
engaged. So in my experience, that's what I've seen shift for me over the years is as I've grown and traveled and met with leaders and staff, truly embracing how you lead from your heart is the magic sauce. It's the secret
Yeah.
sauce to good leadership.
Absolutely. I believe that wholeheartedly. Hey,
Yes.
so I wanted to get back into caring science just a little bit because I can't talk about that without saying love, caring science, Caritas.
Yeah.
But tell me how you got introduced to caring science. I'm just curious. I want to
Oh
hear a little bit
my
more about
gosh.
you.
I'll tell you a quick story that sort of led to this. Years ago, I'm one of a large family. I'm one of 7 children.
Oh, wow.
We grew up initially in Boston, Massachusetts, and we would walk to church, all 9 of us, 7 children, 2
Wow.
parents, and we'd walk up Dorchester Avenue to St. Gregory's Church. And I was 4 years old, and we would cross the street and walk back down Dorchester Avenue to go home. Now, as we walked down the street, Kearney Hospital was on that side that we continue to go home on. And the Labouré College of Nursing was part of that hospital because, you know, schools of nursing were part of hospital systems years ago. Mm-hmm. And so there's a big statue of a nun, and she had her hands open, extended like this, and she had some rosary beads, etc. And I remember saying to my father, because it was a big hill to get up to the front door, and of course, the statue at this point looked 20 feet high to a 4-year-old, right? And I remember saying to my dad, Daddy, why does she hold her hands like this? And he got down on a knee and looked me straight in the eye, and he said, sweetheart, because she holds every sick person in the palm of her hands. She takes care of them. What I didn't know then was that my father was teaching me Caritas, that authentic presence, the eye, getting down to eye level, right? Making that eye contact, soft voice, making sure I fully understood, holding my hands while he told me. And it stuck with me. And every Sunday when we would walk past, I would start doing this with my hands, right? Now, fast forward, my father got sick years later and ended up being cared for in that hospital. And they did just that. They held him in the palm of his hands. I ended up going to nursing school there. And I told that story to the president at the time when I graduated. And she had me share it. And Gene Watson's theory was part of our nursing theory when I graduated. So I was introduced to Gene early on.
Right.
And just got enmeshed in her philosophy, her theory, her virtues. And I thought, isn't this humankind? Isn't this human nature? Isn't this life? Isn't this what we're supposed to be doing? So I tell people all the time, Charlene, Caritas, it's not a program. Oh, dear Lord, it's not a program. Mm-hmm. Caritas is a way of being.
Yes.
It's who we are internally as people. Caritas it's love in action. That's all it is. Absolutely. And when we start recognizing it and calling it out, like we do for children, we're really good at telling children, oh, you're a good friend. Oh, you're a good big brother or a good big sister. That was so kind of you, right? We say it all the time. We tend not to do it as adults. And so when I would do my compassion rounds, I made a point of calling out a virtue of Caritas. So I might say, Charlene, I saw you in room 401 with that patient. You were so compassionate and kind. I just want you to know what a difference you made in that person's life today. I hope you know that makes a difference in you too. Thank you for all you do. And that was a catalyst. And so now you, Charlene, would go down the hall and you would find something to say nice about a colleague. And so it became this sort of popcorn effect where, you know, kindness begets kindness. They even say that people who witness kindness practice it more and look for it more. So if you model it, if you call it out every now and then, I still do it. I have 3 adult sons and I always say, you know, how wonderful they are to each other. Or as gentlemen, I was out to lunch with my eldest son and he was holding the door open for 4 or 5 people behind us. And so I waited just inside the door for him. And I said, you are so loving and kind. What a gentleman. He said, Mom, we learned from the best. You and Daddy modeled it. And I thought, okay, this is legacy. There's my legacy, right?
That is your legacy of love.
You know, you want how you live your life to not just be inside your home, but to be outside too. So go back to what that gentleman had said to me, one of my mentors and leaders. He said, you know, most people say a job is what you do. It's not who you are, but it is who you are. It's Caritas is how you live.
Yeah, and you can't separate it, just like me as a leader. And I remember having a conversation with one of the directors. I said, you know, it's really hard to separate love and Charlene because it's who I am. You know, I thank God for Gene Watson's theory because when her theory came in 2010, I think is when I was introduced. That's when I had the language to actually express how I was practicing. You know what I mean? So it has been such a beautiful game changer since 2010. So now I want to kind of dig into something that just fell on my heart. So if there is a nurse or a leader out there right now, Darlene, and they're in that 75% of burnt out and emotional exhausted and all of the things, is there anything that you can speak to their heart right now to encourage them?
So, it's interesting you say that because I've seen it. I traveled across this country. I was fortunate enough to have a position. So I was able to see in many different organizations where there was love, where they struggled, and where nurses just showed up, did their work, and went home. And where there was one or two that were really striving to find a culture that really embraced them. So here's what I have been doing, and I have found that it worked. I ask the nurse or nurses in a huddle, if you could change one thing on this unit that would make your heart tender, that would make you want to get up every day and come to work and not dread the next morning, what would that be? And you let them talk and you say, okay, how do we make that happen? Who's in it with me? How are we going to make it happen? You can't boil the ocean. What you can do is create the catalyst for others to want. So we started doing this. When I was a chief nursing officer, I inherited a culture that was pretty stoic, kept to themselves, heads down, didn't even acknowledge each other on an elevator. And I started to do that. And we started doing these innovation units. We're going to start with one unit. And you know what started happening? Physicians were talking about that unit. When I go on that unit, they greet me by name. Patients seem happy. Nurses seem happy. What's the secret sauce over there? And so other nurses are saying, well, we want to do that too. And so it became, what it's like competition, right?
Yes,
it's the love competition. And so we started doing that. But one of the most simplest things we can do, and I started doing this just, in my most recent work, is say, before we start the day, we start a huddle. And I say, tell me 3 good things. Can only be good things. 3 good things. What's something good in your life, something good in your work, and what's something good you want to see by the end of the day? 3 good things. Tell me 3 good things. And so we would go around the huddle and people would talk about 3 good things. And you know what that did? It took the focus off the stress in the environment for the moment. But I got to learn something about a colleague that I may not have known. Well, my daughter won her cheerleading competition. So you know what that did at lunchtime? Tell me about your daughter's cheerleading competition. My daughter does cheerleading. You started to create relationships in the team that didn't exist before. So tell me 3 good things. We can all tell you what needs to be fixed, but what's happening in your life right now that's exciting and lovely and wonderful? What is something that happened great at work? Who helped you with a patient or maybe gave you 5 minutes so you could get off the unit for a cup of coffee? What would you love to see happen? And when you ask them to tell you what they would love to see happen by the end of the day, they're actually giving you the blueprint for their innovation unit. They're actually helping to feed it. So I had a sort of a method to my madness with that. But I always walked in the unit with a smile like this. I was always greeting people in the elevator. And that's contagious, right?
Yes.
So, when you get that sort of energy going, like the energy you exuded at the conference. I mean, I just had a natural affinity to you as well, Charlene. I said, this woman is just like singing my song here. But, it's interesting. People want to be around people who are happy, people who are loved, people who feel it. It just is a pull like a magnet, right? And so when you can do that, when you can show it, when you can live it, it just spreads. It's that ripple.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing to know that we have the power of presence to absolutely change someone's life in an instant, just with us being authentically there. So I love it. I love being able to, I love loving. I do. I just absolutely love it. So I'm so thankful that we're able to do this and to impact all those. I mean, think about all the lives that you've changed just in being who you were designed and destined to be. It's absolutely amazing. If there is, but let's go a little bit deeper for someone right now that's watching. It might be a nurse leader. It might be a nurse, and they might be silently struggling at work, but very miserable at home. And you're watching this. You're watching this podcast episode. And so we want to like speak right to your heart, especially on this month. So Darlene, let's speak to that kind of person right now, because they're probably watching like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I want them to know that we see you.
Yes.
And we know that it's not easy, and we feel you. And so I just wanted to personally speak into your life that you're not alone, and that to reach out for help, there has to be someone that you can connect with. And if not, guess what? You can connect with me, send me a message, and we can spend some time. But Charlene, what would you say to that person that's watching right now on this video? They've been struggling. They might be even at the verge of quitting. Like, what would you tell that person right now? And they're actually watching right now.
So much I could tell them.
Yes.
But if I could leave your listeners with one thing, especially our nurses, is you don't have to harden your heart to lead. You don't have to harden your heart to care. You don't have to harden your heart to not love. Your compassion isn't a liability. It's your greatest strength.
Yes.
Bring your full, authentic, messy self to work, because we need it now more than ever. We need all of you, your authentic self, regardless, as long as you come with that loving heart, that person that truly wants to heal, that person who truly wants to embrace this beautiful art of human caring. You don't have to do it with a hardened heart, because your compassion isn't a liability. It really is your greatest strength. So bring your full authentic self to work. We want it. We need it now more than ever.
I absolutely love that. That was just a beautiful hug right there.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So, Darlene, why don't you tell us what you do, and is there anything that you can offer to the audience?
So I am an executive coach. Most recently, I was coaching at Trinity Health with their new virtual nursing program, and really trying to bring forward a culture of compassion and collaboration and team, right? I've coached executives as well as the frontline staff. But for me, it's advocacy for policy change, advocacy for culture change. Because when we can adopt protocols and policies that support a loving culture, it's just beautiful. I sit on the board for the Society for Participatory Medicine. So think about that, participatory. How do we bring the staff and patients into the fold so that everybody feels that they're part of something bigger and important? A loving organization consortium. I'm one of the strategic advisors to the board and a charter member. I join organizations that support what Caritas is, love in action. If you're looking for someone that can help guide your teams, get them to a place of commitment, personal and professional, please reach out. I'm here to support you.
That is wonderful. And I will make sure I put her information in the description. And then one last question, and then we're going to go ahead and end. It has been a delight to have you on the program, especially on this Love Month. So I have one more question for you. The future of nursing. We know what's going on and all of the statistics and everything that's out in the news. So what would you like to see? If you had your biggest dream, what would you like to see for nursing, or as the profession, or organizations even?
Yeah, so for me, nursing is the heart and soul of what I do. And I think to get involved, right? When we have nurses involved, when we have their collective voices, we start to create a moment. And then the moment becomes a movement. Yes. This is our profession. We need to take control of the profession and steer it in a direction that fosters growth, humanity, kindness, compassion, all the things that build a healthy foundation. Get involved in your nursing organizations. Join a committee, join a senior center, bring back those learnings and share them. Get active on LinkedIn. There's so many organizations on LinkedIn and so many collective voices. I love hearing and seeing the work being done across so many domains, whether it's tech, with AI. We have so many nurses in doing tech
Yeah.
right now. And what are they trying to do? Make sure we don't lose the humanity, that it supports us but doesn't control the profession, right? Get
Yes.
involved. This is a beautiful time to be in nursing and in healthcare. And we need your collective voices so that we do have this movement of love as we go forward.
That is so wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. If you want to contact Darlene, please look at her information down below. And we love and appreciate you for joining. Share it with your friends. Thanks again, Darlene.
Thank you.